Welcome, everybody, back to Joshua's Magic, a channel about the intersection of the spiritual and the mundane. Today, I've got a clip for you from a larger discussion in an upcoming video, which will be called Esoteric Roundtable. But the clip today is our discussion on Wesak and a few other topics interspersed. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, to Joshua's Magic, a channel about the intersection of the spiritual and the mundane. Today, we've got a panel discussion on the Wesak Festival. Today, we're being joined by Steve Chernikeeff. He's the founder of the 12s movement. Hello, Steve.
Hi.
We've got Cyrus Ryan. He's the head or the director of the Northern School of Esoteric Wisdom.
Hello.
And we've got Danijela Ivelja Hill. Sorry, I'm
Ivelja Hill, Danijela Ivelja Hill.
Yeah, and she is a disciple of the Ageless Wisdom. So thanks everybody for coming on, and I'll get the ball rolling. We're talking about the Wesak Festival, and for those of you who don't know, I'll just give a sort of initial explanation of it. It's this idea that the spiritual masters of wisdom, the planetary hierarchy, those who are sort of watching over humanity, gather once a year in Wesak Valley, which is, I think, the photo that Danielle is using, even though that's an AI version of it. And the Buddha, who has since moved to sort of higher spheres than those initiates and masters, comes back once a year, and to the assembled masses of the hierarchy, he pours out his blessing. And through them and the other disciples tuning in, that energy from Shambhala through the Buddha to the hierarchy is then distributed out to the world. And it's seen as the kind of the spiritual high point of the year in esoteric circles. So, any thoughts, any other explanations or addendums to add to that very basic understanding?
That's
I think it's
good
worth.
basics.
Yeah.
Most people won't go much deeper than that. There's a lot of mystery involved with Wesak. There's a concept given out somewhere by Blavatsky, I cannot remember, called the mistake of the Buddha.
Ah, yes.
And it is because of this mistake that he vowed to return, that the teaching that he gave out was too lofty for humanity, especially at that time, even though his students most of them were arhats, at least third initiation, fourth initiation. They were not ordinary, especially his closer disciples. And so his teaching was of a different nature, not for just regular humanity. Thus is considered, so says Blavatsky, as the mistake of the Buddha. Thus he returns as part of his vow. But that's just something I read. I can't verify that. But it's an interesting idea.
Mm.
So what I mean, you mentioned before in the sort of the green room, let's say, Stephen, sorry, that that there are different traditions on Wesak, right? Like there's some variation of how it's observed between the Theosophists and the Tibetans and maybe others.
And even different dates sometimes, yes. But as you know, most of us here follow the Bailey tradition of the full moon in May being the Wesak, where the Buddha comes back to the Wesak Valley and appears before the assembled masters and initiates and bestows his blessings upon our world. And this year is especially important Wesak because it's the 100-year conclave Wesak.
Yeah, there's actually, I used to know an extremely good astrologer, and he explained it, Wesak and the Buddha, astrologically related to the eye of the bull in Taurus, which is a symbol of enlightenment, but I don't remember all of it. But there is also a astrological, how would you call it, matrix that's involved with this. It's a lot more than what meets the eye and even what's written.
Hmm. I remember hearing it said someplace that the Buddha was born in Taurus, he attained enlightenment in Taurus, and then he died in Taurus.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what the tradition is. Yeah.
Mm.
The other aspect, I don't know where I read, also probably Blavatsky, is that the Buddha maintains a second body on the inner planes that can be used, and he uses it when he returns because as he said to his, or he asked his cousin Ananda during one of his talks, he said, Ananda, do you see the Buddha? And Ananda replied, yes, I saw the Buddha walked into the room, the Buddha sat down, and now the Buddha is giving a discourse. And the Buddha answered, no, Ananda, you do not see the Buddha. So the Buddha is not his body, but he maintains a body that's been used by other initiates over the last couple of thousand years on the inner planes, and then he uses that body to return during the Wesak ceremony or ritual. Supposedly, Tsongkhapa, who was a big redeemer or changed Tibetan Buddhism, used the body of the Buddha. He's also a great being. There's a lot of mysteries with these great beings. They can use different kind of bodies.
What was his name? Sangapa?
Tsongkhapa. It's around the
Sangkapa.
14th, 15th century, I
And he
forget.
was a physically incarnated person.
Oh yeah. He's historical. He transformed. He began what's called the Galupa in Tibetan. Previous to that was what is it, Marpa with the Kargyupa, and that was around 1050, and then much later he what's it called when you there's a term not like a reformer. He
Oh,
things were becoming corrupt, and he came in and he gave out what's called the Lam Rim, which are the rules of the monastic rules, and it's the Dalai Lamas that come from Tsongkhapa, from his disciple, one of his two disciples, I forget. Their names, some of them are more difficult, but so the Galupa, like the present Dalai Lama, is a Galupa. The rules and everything were started by Tsongkhapa.
Probably the
so
last Dalai Lama.
what's that?
Pardon?
Probably
This
the last
particular one.
Dalai Lama.
Yeah, he doesn't want it to continue, so I've read.
And also the Chinese who administer Tibet won't allow the normal tradition to continue.
Yes, yeah.
So that's
So,
extremely important point. If he's the last one,
yeah, yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Because yeah, it has an esoteric impact and obviously very significant.
Mm.
and he's a hard worker. I met him a couple of times.
Mm.
Took part in one of his Kala Chakra initiations 20 years ago or something. He's been to Toronto a couple of times, and I knew a bunch of his monks from the Nalanda monastery, which Nalanda monastery are the monks of the Dalai Lama.
Mm.
I would like to add something. My background also includes pranic healing. And in pranic healing, one of the things we've been told is that Lama Tsongkhapa, that's the same, I guess I pronounce it slightly differently, is one of the reincarnations of St. Francis of Assisi, who later on became Master Kutumi. So that's what we are told, in pranic healing. It might be completely wrong, but that would be the lineage, the second ray lineage, possibly.
I doubt that, but Tsongkhapa is a great, great being, much more than St. Francis, but you never know.
And interestingly, the late Pope took his name from Francis of Assisi, of course.
Yes.
This is an aside, but I don't know there's any significant connection, of course. I just make that comment.
Yeah, I
So we
guess.
could say that the Pope Francis is actually interested in Kuthumi. If we accepted Kuthumi was Francis, it's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Yes,
I know.
This
for
I
sure.
know. Just a little esoteric humor.
So what this energy that the Buddha pours out, what what understanding do you have about the purpose and the nature of that?
As far as I can see, it's the continuum of light, and it's a very brief touch upon the earth again, isn't it? They say it's 8 minutes or something like that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if that's
Yeah, there's
entirely
the
accurate.
approach where the Buddha's supposedly approaching the valley and then the pouring out of the blessing and then the moving away, and I think that all takes place within 8 minutes.
Yeah, but as a from an esoteric point of view, it's much more about energy, isn't it, rather than trying to formulate the Buddha being a being or a person coming and touching the earth. For me,
Yeah.
it's a representation of the energy of beyond Shambhala coming and touching the earth, and the
It's like
Buddha is representative of that.
yeah, he's a transformer, or
Yes.
channels in this very high energy, which then will go through Lord Maitreya and be brought down through the masters, sort of like a transformer does outside of your house. And so that the electricity that comes into the house will be not too strong. You don't blow all the fuses and everything. It has to be, I'm not
It steps it down.
electrical, but step down. Thank you. So it's step down. So there's a whole process in the Wesak Valley, from my understanding, of stepping down. Right? So, for instance, an accepted disciple who knows how to tune in to the Wesak will receive a different level of the Shakti, the energy, than, say, a probationer that's just learning.
Yes.
So it's step down, step down, step down. Right? If we were to take the full blast, let's call it, of the Buddha, it probably, would fry us.
Buddha blast.
Yeah, Buddha blast.
And that's throughout the human condition, is that we, according to our ability, can receive energy, of course.
Also has a lot
So,
to do with our bodies, the coarseness, quality of the body. Certain other races have a more subtle physical body versus a Caucasian that has a very coarse body, being a newer race also. And so is more difficult. But a lot of the Caucasians now have, I like to call it, more Eastern souls, and thus are attracted to this. But it takes time in order to align to this particular energy. Everybody will experience it differently, and it's a good thing for anybody who tries. It's helpful for humanity and helpful for the individual.
So speaking of tuning into it, what would you folks say about how somebody would go about tuning into it if they're interested, or maybe if they're just hearing about it now for the first time?
I'm sure everybody has different ways. I've been doing, this will be my 50th Wesak. I'm not young as I look.
Happy 50th,
Ella.
Cyrus.
Steven's young too, so he looks very young. So this would be my 50th Wesak. And my teacher started us preparing for Wesak generally as soon as the sun moves northward in Capricorn. And we prepare for 6 months because Wesak for us was New Year's. and that you refurbish this, how do you call it, or regenerate the batteries, so to speak, of your soul each Wesak to last throughout the entire year. So maybe we're a little bit more extreme in our efforts. If you read my first book, I gave quite a few examples of what we did. And during Wesak, we usually would go on retreat for about 5 days. This year, I'm only going for 3 days. But I've been preparing, and certain members of the group that go with me have been preparing for quite some time. And through that, one is chanting the mantra of Gautama, Lord Gautama, to prepare and take part in the ritual that goes on in that sacred valley. There's quite a lot of things you can do, but that's just a very brief idea. But that's how I've been taught. My teacher had his awakening when he was 16 in Borobudur in Indonesia, but he's Asian. So Wesak was always very important.
What about you, Steven? Danijela?
Well, I believe, is it Alice Bailey that says that the masters also prepare for 6 months at least on the inner levels. Also, again, my biggest, before I joined the 12s, my first contact with something like this in this lifetime was through pranic healing. And they really emphasize purifications on all levels, purifying your body through diet, trying to be as close to vegetarianism as possible. And also purifications of building the character, removing the weaknesses, working on the weaknesses. I guess that would be dweller on the threshold, I would say. And for 6 months. And then if you're really hardcore and you want to do it, to the best of your potential, you would do the water fast 2 days before the day of the Wesak and 2 days after. So 2 days of the preparation for the full moon, the moment of the energy coming in, and then 2 days of distribution. And they're always emphasizing the importance of the group work, particularly because it can be too much for an individual, especially if somebody is not prepared well enough. So group will kind of balance things out. That's the hope.
Yes. Groups enable us to receive the energy more purely and in greater strength. They say that a coordinated group of disciples could increase the energy thousands of fold. And it's a stepping down process, isn't it, from Shambhala via hierarchy, via the new group of world servers into humanity, through humanity into the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, and mineral kingdom. So it's a stepping down process that is continually. And Wesak is known to be one of the great shambhalic impacts, they call them. And they happen rarely. And this Wesak is the 100-year shambhalic impact of the conclave of the hierarchy. And so that's why it's a particularly special Wesak. Alice Bailey mentions 2025 16 times in her books.
Good count.
And that's not...
I have no idea.
Yeah, I've counted, yes.
Yeah, I did, definitely. It's good to know, though, Stephen. Thank you.
And
In case anybody ever asked me that.
and when you think about it, that Alice Bailey was talking about this in 1925. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, to be accurate, 1918 onwards, but certainly 1925, she mentioned the next 100-year conclave in 2025. And that's when she published her magnum opus, of course, Treatise on Cosmic Fire in 1925, in 2 volumes. A little bit of trivia there for you.
Yes.
It was first published in 2 volumes.
You probably have the original one, if I know you.
I do. Yes.
Mine's falling apart, and I had to get I got 2 hardcover ones. One I took to India, and just carrying it around India, it didn't do it well back in 1970 something. But
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I've been to India many times. I lived there a year as well.
yeah, so did I in 1980. But you live very close, so you could hop over in a couple of minutes from where you live.
Well, I wasn't living in in Thailand then. I was living in
No.
London.
Yes, but I'm saying now.
Oh, now, yes, yes. Well, I've been, 20 odd times. Yeah. Love India.
I'm going September 15th, give or take, for a little while. So
Oh,
again,
lovely.
I was there
Yeah.
3 years ago for 2 months. It's my
Great. Yes,
second
yes, I
home.
saw that. Yes, I saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, being a significant year, that we can expect a number of changes to come on. And we don't know exactly what they are, but a lot of things came out of the last hierarchical conclave in 1925. In
Right.
fact, I recently found out that the spiritual group that I'm a part of called Subud, that the founder of that had his experience in 1925, I think in like maybe September or something like that. So it's interesting to see these kind of outpourings of the energies taking root in reality.
The future has taken root in the present.
It's important that humanity responds appropriately. I mean, we have these issues in the world today because of the shambolic impact, not the other way around, which some people misinterpret, in my view. So
How do you mean?
the shambolic, the energy comes in, and then you have this disturbance in the world because the humanity is not dealing with it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Humanity is ready to deal with it. That's part of the problem.
And then you've got the Ukraine conflict, the Gaza thing, and you've got the COVID thing, and all these things, from my point of view, are all demonstrations of humanity's inability to reach out to Godhead, so to speak, to use a Hindu term, or to the universe appropriately.
I don't think humanity's ready, Stephen. Not to argue with, but humanity still has. If you look, we're coming supposedly into the beginning of the Aquarian age. And if you take a look at the symbol for Aquarius, what is it? The jagged two lightning, however you describe it, doesn't look harmonious. It looks up and down, up and down. So there's going to be a lot of shaking up, especially in the first few hundred years. It's going to be rough. The Aquarian age lasts for 2,500 and some odd years, or 2,500 and some odd. So somewhere maybe after 500, 600, 700 years, things will start to settle down a bit. But with this, as Stephen is saying about the shambolic energy, it is very disruptive.
Yes, it
And
is.
there are some very disruptive forces occurring throughout the world. And they come cyclically, and they have great impacts. And if you look, Alice Bailey actually started writing before the conclave, bringing out the newer teaching, Letters in Occult Meditation, and what is it? The Initiation Human and Solar, which are around 1919, still quite a few years. So presently, there are things being formatted of the new teaching already, but it's not ready for humanity. It stays within the ashram until the right timing. I'd say it's already there, but maybe another 10 or so many years as these young advanced beings who are already around mature and sort of get their wings and start to make active impacts. But they are already working, and they're in physical incarnation throughout with certain inner ashrams. But what they can do is not allowed outside the ashram yet. and they're very aware of the conclave, which I know this, you may not like this, it happened already several weeks back. It's not during Wesak, as that is not the correct timing, because the Wesak energy can't have split with something else. The conclave happened before, and then you have Wesak.
When is your understanding about when it happened?
I'm not going to share that. It was just a while back.
Okay.
Is the conclave like a one-time event, or it's like a gathering that happens throughout 2025?
It's a one time.
So technically,
Yeah.
the decision about the reappearance and how is it going to happen has already been made then.
Could be. It would be
Well,
all
if you pay
astrological.
careful attention to what the Tibetan said, he said the decision about that will likely be made. So he didn't even say definitely that it would be made.
Yeah, I can't say. Who am I? I don't want to become like what's his face, that guy from Cher that I was saying, oh, Maitri is here, Maitri is there.
Benjamin Krim,
Yeah, it's a nonsense, looking for the glamour of notoriety, once. So I'm the one. I'm the what is it? The one who talks about it, the forerunner. He wants fame. That's basically it.
yeah. I
When
see
it
it slightly
happens,
differently.
hopefully we know.
I see it slightly differently than that. I think the conclave is a year-long process. It's a continuum in 2025, and I think it does culminate on the 12th of May. But we just have
My
to agree to.
knowledge is a bit different, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's okay. We can differ on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to
So
have on different perspective so people need to exercise their own discrimination of what they think makes sense or what's true or not.
For sure.
yeah. So, but the fact is, this year, let's not get hung up on dates. The conclave is happening, and it is a shambolic impact. And I view the energy coming in and being disturbing, but I see it slightly differently. I think that it's because humanity has not learnt to deal with that energy. And you go back to your metaphor of the transformer, if the transformer is not ready and not purified and can deal with the energy, then chaos will ensue. And I think that DK made it clear. He actually made several prophecies which have not happened, not come true. But let's be clear about that and honest about that.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout his books, he's made many prophecies that by the year 2025, this and this and this will happen, and it hasn't.
Right.
And we have to ask ourselves why that is. And humanity has not responded correctly, in my opinion, to those incoming energies, and that's why we've got the chaos today. And DK made it quite clear that if we didn't learn and understand the three recognitions, that it's possible that the same thing will happen to our world as happened to Atlantis, and it will be destroyed. He made that very clear.
Oh, sorry, Stephen, I thought you were done. I know there's some old traditions of what they call failed evolutions. Not everything becomes successful. Tibetan master is, I agree with what Stephen's saying totally, that a lot of these prophecies, there's also in White Magic, I believe, if you guys can correct me, where he says after 1980, the Master Jesus would take over the Catholic Church.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That never happened.
Well, I think I have something to add on that. J.J. Dewey wrote an article or a series of articles, or maybe it was just posts, but he was kind of putting that together, and I'll just sort of rehash it because since you bring it up. But that symbol, the LUX symbol with the triangle that's on the Bailey books, had several different meanings. But part of it, if you overlay it on the chart of the masters in the hierarchy, one of those, it points to a certain master. And he was saying that it was actually the master Jesus, and that was part of the intention of that, to get people's attention focused on that plan with the 1980s. And actually the Pope who took over, I think his name was it was John Paul I. Yeah. he actually was behaving a lot different than most popes. Like he didn't want all the pomp and circumstance. I think he didn't want them to carry, they carry the Pope like on a throne up to his coronation. He didn't want that. But he was likely poisoned and killed. And so the idea, the theory anyway, is that the Master Jesus was actually meant to overshadow him. But he was killed before that could happen. So that was another plan that seemingly didn't come to proper fruition.
Well, logically, if that was the case, they would know that in advance, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you'd figure, but there might have been.
I think it's a bit of a long shot, that one.
Yes, a lot of long shots.
Yeah. I mean,
people are just hoping
destined to become Jesus, and they couldn't foresee that he was going to be poisoned. I think that's unlikely, isn't it?
Well, it also might have been that he hadn't built the connection to enough strength at that point or something. I don't know. Just the thought.
Well,
I think that's still probably the plan, that Master Jesus will take over the churches. I think that's the plan as per Alice Bailey. It's just the timelines have moved. I think Master DK gave the most optimistic timeline in his books, if everything works out perfectly.
he did, yes.
But for the masters, what's another 100 or 200 years or 500 years? For them, that's not a big deal. For us, it's huge for our little lives.
Well, you
that
can
we
even,
live.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And another thing that I would like to point, Stephen and Cyrus and Joshua, what do you think? Everybody's saying humanity is not responding, which is true to a degree, although there are changes in humanity. But what is the role of the disciples? I know, Stephen, you always kind of mention that. What could disciples in the world, and apparently many are being incarnated at this point, what can they do?
Well, I think that's a good point. And I think the first thing I'd say is, DK was clear about this as well. The reason that the avatar of love or Christ has not been able to reappear is totally down to disciples, not the masses of human beings. He said that. And what he meant by that was the inertia within the White Lodge of disciples is far greater than in the Black Lodge. The Black Lodge is far better organized than the White Lodge, unfortunately. They've got their act together. They've got the misinformation of the mainstream media pumping out nonsense every day. They've managed to infiltrate everything, pharma, everything you can think about. They've infiltrated, and they've been extremely successful. Whereas I would say, probably controversially, the disciples have not been successful hardly at all, because most of them, as far as I can see, in my observation, most of them are sleeping. I mean, I've had debates with disciples about this for years, and many of them will say to me, "You're completely wrong, Stephen. We don't have to do anything. The plan is already there. It will all work out in its own way. Why are you talking like that? We don't have to do anything. The plan is unfolding before us. The battle of light has been won," they say. And I look at them in despair, these people, despair. Tears rolling down my cheeks, Joshua, about this. It's really, really, honestly, I mean, I'd like to slap them, to be honest with you. Wake up. It's not your job to sit there and just say, "Oh, well, as they say in Thailand, mai pen rai," which means, "Oh, never mind." It will happen anyway, because it's not true. Disciples actually have to consciously work at it. And that's why I believe the biggest advancement of Lucis Trust has been the triangle work. I believe that is their greatest achievement, and probably saved humanity in many ways from destruction. Because within group work, from a group of 3 people upwards, that is where the transformation takes place, and the metaphor that Cyrus used about the transformer comes into play. But disciples are the thing that's going to slow down the externalization of the hierarchy. Because they're the ones who have the knowledge. They have the knowledge. They have the knowledge, but they don't do anything. Most of them, not all of them. We do. Us 4 here are not included in that, but many of them many of them don't actually do anything. And DK was hoping in his teachings that the disciples, supposed to be here in their millions by 2025, right, would get their act together, invoke the hierarchy, and peace would transform onto the earth, and Christ would reappear.
I think there are millions.
That's what he
Did
said.
he say that somewhere?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Oh, I think that's another prophecy that's not coming true.
Yeah.
Well, there's many.
I think
many
there
Well,
are
if they're sleeping, you know.
there are
maybe.
That's
very
right. They're
few
sleeping. Yeah.
real disciples are very few.
Yeah.
Well, I
Wishful
think-
thinking disciples there are many, but actual disciples are very few. And those that are actually in contact, direct contact with an inner ashram or the hierarchy are even fewer. There are many who are applying to be disciples, but are not yet. And as sort of Steven says, that many of them have this sort of laissez-faire attitude, that it's just happening, they don't have to do anything. And there are a lot of spiritual teachers that reinforce that out there, but they're more Piscean in their concepts. But so many people still follow that Piscean model. There are not that many real groups that are out there.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Functioning on the physical plane even. There are very few, which is very unfortunate. There's still a lot of gurus. My teacher used to call them Q gurus, Q for quacks, or to use the Tibetan master from, what is it, Hercules, Busiris.
No, yeah.
A lot of deceivers of the soul that are out there. And they say good words, they have knowledge, a certain type of knowledge with words, and they easily capture with their good words the interests of many people, and that actually prevents people from being more active. But that's the time.
Platitudinous.
I'm sorry, what, Stephen?
Platitudinous words.
Yes, you're correct.
I read them daily, unfortunately, all over the internet on very well respected pages, and they'll say something that is nothing.
Exactly.
A few words about
Everything
the
is
light
nothing,
coming
Stephen.
in. Sorry?
I said everything is nothing, Stephen.
No, you're being like Krishnamurti there. Be careful.
Yes.
But the fact is, one big demonstration for me of the lack of application of the esoteric teachings in the new group of world servers is the lack of combinations and organizations of the groups that we have. You know, I mean, we're supposed to be, and I've said this for decades, we're supposed to be the new group of world servers, but you'll have over there the Lucis Trust, over there the Agni Yoga group, and they don't even get together.
Somebody froze. He froze.
The connection must have crapped out for a second there, Cyrus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have the cooperation that the new group of world servers teaches that we should have.
Well, and that's because I think largely there's too much, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this too, but there's too much focus on the form aspect, right? These teachings say this, and I have to do this and meditate like this, and maybe eat this or that, whatever. And there's less emphasis on the synthetic thing that can unite those things, even if this group's doing things this way, this group's doing things that way. And if you're really focused on the essence of it more, you could connect in some way. And there has to be a desire to do it too, right? Because if you're just not interested and it's, oh well, they're doing their thing and we're doing the thing we're supposed to do over here.
But there's some things that we can agree on, though, Joshua, aren't there? We agree on using the Great Invocation, for example, right? We agree that the hierarchy is there. We agree on karma. We agree on life after death. We agree on rebirth. All these things. So there's a massive information. If we set aside the noise, there's a lot that we can agree on, isn't there?
Yeah.
But they still mostly, not all of them, but mostly refuse to cooperate, as DK has taught us, in the way that the new group of world service was built to facilitate. The new group of world service is not an organization, as DK has told us 100 times. That is the plane on which we can cooperate together. So if we have all these common denominators that we all agree in being good people, we all agree in invocation of the light and all this, why aren't we doing it?
And the work of the disciple is to align with their soul. When you take part in Wesak, not only are you helping your soul, but you are taking part in a hierarchical event. You are moving your karma, your spiritual karma, in alignment with a planetary yearly event. And if you do it more often, you're affecting your spiritual destiny, not only in this life, but in future lives. And that's very important. But to think that you can change others is, and how many can change themselves? How many can let go of their negative bad habits, negative emotions? How many have achieved ahimsa? Tibet masters spent several pages on ahimsa, to be harmless towards others.
I would like to say one thing. When Buddha comes for those 8 minutes, Maitreya, is it two other masters, is it Kutumi and Amoria, they create the triangle. And in the middle of the triangle is a crystalline bowl with this like crystalline watery like liquid that gets blessed and absorbs that energy. And it's part of that transformation process. So as above, so below, the importance of triangles.
Yes.
So,
Triangles have saved humanity, in my opinion.
yeah.
Well, and there's
But
a stepping down of energy there too, because they've got that triangle.
Correct.
The three of them receive the energy. There's a group there. It's not the Christ all by himself.
Correct.
And then they step it down to everybody else.
DK's made it clear that triangles, and it's the smallest group formation on the earth is triangles, isn't it? And he's made it very clear that in the future Aquarian age, it is group work that will be the succession and the externalization process, not individuals.
That's
That's
why
the
I've always
Piscean.
been involved with group works for, well, it's been since 1975. It's a long time when I started. But when we have our Wesak ceremony, we always have a bowl with water. And when we chant the Buddha mantra and we make food offerings, have a ritual, do like similar what they would do in that valley. And then the water is given to everybody who partakes. I've had about 5 Wasaks where I had for the public. I don't have it at the exact time for the public. I do that for myself and my inner group. But for the public, I usually have it a few hours later or whatever. But then people seem to enjoy it. For the last few years, we've had about 30 people come for a Wesak. And it's really beautiful having them all chant to the Buddha mantra. And first we pay obeisance to the masters who are there. And then we pay obeisance to Lord Maitreya. And then we begin chanting the Buddha mantra and do so many rounds of that, and then finish with the great invocation. And then we pass the water around to everyone, because the water we would receive on the altar. So we build an altar, usually have a fairly nice sized Buddha, and people seem to really enjoy it. And there's usually a downpour. Many people can feel something touching them at the top of their head. They feel something going on. For myself, if you read my book, Living on the Inner Edge, I discuss a group of Wasaks, and I had some of my best spiritual experiences during Wesak. And even in the last few years, most Wasaks, I always have some, how would you call it, very special experience. Not every Wesak. Sometimes I find myself starting the Wesak meditation and, I want to have there's a thought going through me, wants to have an experience. But it's when I don't think of it, then something usually happens that was quite magnificent. I can't even find the words for them, but usually I learn a great deal through the Wesak event. One of the Wesaks in my book, I mentioned my teacher, we would meditate every 4 hours. And the Wesak at that year was somewhere like 2 a.m. And so we'd sleep, wake up, meditate, sleep, and wake up, then went to sleep at somewhere like 10 p.m. and then woke up just before 2 p.m. before 2 a.m. and then meditated. And then there's an 18-hour cycle related to Wesak, and then catch that same cycle, 2 more meditations. And I have a slight psychic ability, but it was magnified tremendously during this Wesak, those type of events. That was back in 1980 or something like that. So yeah, it's usually very, very, I always look forward to Wesak. That's why I prepare for it for 6 months, because it's well worth the experience. And people were disciplined enough. Wesak requires discipline, focus, and determination to persevere. And I'm very surprised, and I know you guys may, I once went back, I don't know how many years, that'd be 20 odd years, and took part in a Wesak Lucius Trust in New York. I was so disappointed. One, because I can sense many things. There was nothing. And I never understood why they don't chant to the Buddha, because the Buddha is coming. You invoke the Buddha through his mantra. And I've been doing that for 25 years.
So getting back to Wesak, Cyrus, you shared some of your experience with that. Steven and Danijela, do you want to share some experiences you've had with Wesak?
No, not really. I mean, there's nothing special has ever happened to me on Wesak. I respect the approach to Buddha and the teachings, but I want to re-emphasize that this year it's about the 100-year conclave, not just Wesak. It's really about this wonderful opportunity we have of changing our world that we live in through group service. I keep coming back to that. That is what's going to change humanity. We've had triangles in the past. Now we've got 12s and other things happening, and that will be the thing that saves humanity, in my opinion. And that's the way that the world is changing. The esoteric world is changing into being more practical. I don't think that the third phase of the teaching is going to be about books. It's going to be about actually doing something about it, and there's far too many in our genre who don't do anything. They just sit there and they might know Bailey back to front and be a lot better students of Bailey than I am, but they don't do anything with it. So it's a complete waste of time. Book learning is not going to change the world. Practical compassion will change the world, in my opinion.
All right, so I'd like to wind the video down.
Yeah.
It's gone very long. But does anybody have any closing thoughts or things they want to share related to Wesak?
Danijela, you've not said much about Wesak. Come on.
Well, Wesak is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to, regardless of level of our evolution or spiritual achievement or soul contact, to do something, make a change.
Yes.
And group work is always recommended. You're safer for an individual and more powerful. And I personally had very special experiences during Wesak. I only started celebrating it in the past 7 years when I got involved with the pranic healing. Very, very special experiences. So it is real. It is very powerful. And I don't know what else to say. I'm very excited about our meeting in Thailand. I'll meet Steven in person. Very
Yes.
excited about that.
So you guys have a sort of private closed group Wesak meeting you're going to, but Cyrus, you have one that's open to the public, at
Yeah,
least
I've
online.
always followed what the master DK says to try and bring it to the public.
Yeah.
Now, the first one I did, I got about 7 people. I can remember. I rented a place. A few people, I was surprised actually came, other than the few that I knew. But last year I had about 28 or 29. I don't know. This year, the last full moon meditations, I'm averaging about, it was 21 last month and about 20 the month before. So I'm hoping for the public.
And so if people are interested in participating in that, whether in person or online, what's the best way to reach out to you about that?
Well, they can go through the Northern School of Esoteric Wisdom website. They can go Facebook, Northern School of Esoteric Wisdom, Facebook events. It's there on the events. And we
Okay,
rent
we'll
a
put
place.
links to that in the video description.
Yeah, so we rent a place.
Yeah, let me clarify something. Our group is open to everybody, including all the public, and anybody can come to our group and take part. What we're asking for in Thailand, we've got over 40 people coming. What we're asking for is people who've had experience of doing 12s, rather than us sit there and spend the first 4 days of the 5 days teaching them the basics of 12s. So that was the only reason that we said that we didn't want Joe Blogs from the local corner store to turn up. But
And so if people, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but we're also doing Zooming online, so we're expecting to get 100 or more that way. But anybody's invited to join 12s. So I don't want it to appear to be some sort of a secret society, a Masonic thing, because it isn't.
Okay, and what's the best way for people to reach out if they're interested in being a part of the 12s?
Oh God, there's many ways. We've got YouTube channels, we've got books, we've got website.
Okay,
Facebook.
well, you tell me, and I'll put the links in the description of the video, and people can check those out.
A long list. Yeah.
I hope you
Yeah,
get
but so we are open to everybody. I don't want to appear to be secret societies. Good, we're not.
I would say also people should follow their heart and their intuition, whatever they're drawn to, they should join that group.
That's right, yes.
I personally, I used to meditate every year with pranic healers, wonderful meditations, very, very powerful. Huge groups in person and online. But this year I'm very, very excited about being part of the 12s. So.
All right, well, and if Danijela gives me any links to the pranic healing stuff, I'll put that in the description and people can check that out too.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, if you made it this far in the video, please leave a like on it, share with somebody you think might appreciate it, and consider subscribing for more interesting conversations. Closing thoughts, anybody?
Just thank you for inviting us.
All right, well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it was fun.
Until next time, this is Joshua's Magic. Thank you, Danijela, Steven, and Cyrus for coming on. And everybody, I hope it's a productive and spiritually connected Wesak.
Namaste.
Namaste.